War! What is it good for? Apparently faking it on TV. Imagine this, you're sitting at home innocently watching the news. Suddenly you see terrifying footage of a fierce battle raging in Syria. Explosions rock the screen, gunfire rattles your eardrums, and a reporter solemnly tells you about the horrors unfolding. You'd be forgiven for thinking, wow, this is serious. Well, here's the kicker, that footage ABC News showed you. Yeah, about that. Turns out it wasn't Syria. It wasn't even close. Remember that gun range in Kentucky where your weird uncle likes to hang out? Turns out that's where ABC's war footage actually came from. This wasn't just some silly blunder. It was a major news organization passing off completely fabricated footage as reality. And folks, that's a big, fat, steaming pile of wrong. In this era of fake news and deepfakes, this incident throws a giant wrench into the already shaky gears of media credibility. The trust we place in news organizations is paramount. We rely on them to provide accurate, truthful information about the world around us. From the days of Walter Cronkite to the modern era, journalism has been a cornerstone of democracy. But when that trust is broken, it has far-reaching consequences. People start to question everything they see and hear. In a world where misinformation spreads like wildfire on social media, the role of credible journalism is more critical than ever. Fact-checking and verification are essential tools in the fight against fake news. Journalists must uphold these standards to maintain public trust. The public demands accountability. They want to know that the information they receive is accurate and trustworthy. When mistakes are made, it's crucial for news organizations to own up to them, correct them, and strive to do better. The integrity of journalism is at stake. It's up to both the media and the public to ensure that truth prevails. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the ABC News fake war footage scandal. Okay, let's get one thing straight. Syria's history is long and complicated. We're talking millennia of rich, intricate history that could fill volumes of books. It's like trying to explain the plot of Game of Thrones after binge-watching the entire series in one sitting. There are so many layers, characters and twists that it can make your head spin. There are alliances, betrayals and more factions than you can shake a stick at. Imagine a never-ending chess game where the pieces keep changing sides and the rules are constantly rewritten. But for the sake of this story, let's focus on the part where things went really, really south. We're talking about the events that turned the country upside down and led to the chaos we see today. See, in 2011, Syria got caught up in the whole Arab Spring thing, with protests and uprisings popping up faster than Starbucks in a gentrified neighborhood. People were demanding change, freedom, and an end to corruption. Things escalated quickly, and before you could say civil war, the country was a full-blown war zone. The government cracked down hard, and various groups started fighting for control. It was a recipe for disaster. Now, remember the Kurds? They're an ethnic group living in parts of Turkey, Syria, Iraq and Iran. Basically, they got stuck with the worst neighbors imaginable. They've been fighting for their own state for decades. In Syria, they had carved out a little slice of autonomy for themselves, which naturally didn't sit well with Turkey. The Kurds saw an opportunity to establish a more significant presence amidst the chaos. Turkey saw the Kurds as a threat and decided to launch a military operation. They were determined to prevent the Kurds from gaining any more power or territory, because, you know, when in doubt, invade. And that's just a tiny slice of the complex, tangled web that is Syria's recent history. It's a story of power struggles, survival, and the quest for autonomy in a region fraught with tension. Now, you might be thinking, what does any of this have to do with ABC News and their fake footage? Well, hold on to your hats, because things are about to get messy. You see, ABC News was covering the Turkish operation in northern Syria because, well, that's what news organizations do. They send reporters to the conflict zones to bring us, the viewers, the news, even if we'd rather just watch cat videos on YouTube. In October 2019, ABC News aired a segment that seemed to show the intensity of the fighting. They showed explosions, gunfire, and people running for their lives. It was dramatic, it was gripping, and it was completely bogus. They even had one of their anchors, the very serious-looking George Stephanopoulos, introduce the footage with a straight face. He called it new video just coming in from Syria. Except it wasn't new, it wasn't from Syria, and it was about as real as a reality TV show. Section 4. Internet Detectives. Exposing Fake News 1. Pixel at a time. Remember how I said this was the era of fake news? It's everywhere, from social media feeds to major news networks. Well, it's also the era of internet sleuths who have way too much time on their hands. These digital detectives are always on the lookout for inconsistencies and falsehoods, and in this case, thank goodness for that. Their vigilance is crucial in keeping the truth alive, because it didn't take long for people to start noticing that something was fishy about ABC's Syrian war footage. The footage was supposed to depict a war-torn region, but something just didn't add up. It started with a few whispers on social media. People began to share their doubts and suspicions online. People pointed out inconsistencies in the footage, scrutinizing every frame and detail, like the fact that the explosions looked suspiciously like fireworks. They didn't have the characteristics of real war zone explosions. Then some eagle-eyed viewers noticed that the terrain didn't quite match up with what they knew of northern Syria. The landscape seemed off, raising more red flags. And then the internet did what the internet does best. It investigated. People started digging, collaborating in forums and chat rooms. And it wasn't long before they uncovered the truth. The collective effort of these internet detectives paid off. Websites, using geolocation and comparing the footage with publicly available videos, began to piece together the puzzle. They determined that ABC's war zone was actually the Knob Creek gun range in good old Kentucky. The similarities were undeniable. Turns out the footage was from a gun enthusiast event a few years earlier. The event had nothing to do with Syria or any war. Who would have thought that a bunch of guys playing with guns in Kentucky would end up on national news pretending to be a war zone? It's a stark reminder of how easily misinformation can spread and the importance of verifying sources. This incident underscores the critical role of fact-checking in journalism. In an age where information is at our fingertips, it's essential to question and verify before accepting anything as truth. Thanks to the tireless efforts of these internet detectives, the truth was revealed, and a major news network was held accountable. It's a victory for truth and transparency in media. So, the next time you come across a sensational news story, take a moment to question its authenticity. You never know, you might just be the next internet detective to expose the truth. Section 5. ABC's apology, too little, too late. Once the truth came out, ABC News was in full-on damage control mode. They issued a statement saying they had identified a portion of the footage that aired earlier today. That was not shot in Syria, you don't say? They blamed the whole thing on a freelance contributor, because, you know, passing the buck is always easier than taking responsibility. They also deleted the segment from their website and social media, hoping it would just magically disappear. You know, like your browser history after a late-night internet browsing session, but the internet never forgets. The damage was done. ABC News had been caught red-handed, peddling fake news to millions of viewers. Section 6. The fallout. Trust me, I'm not the media. The ABC News fake war footage scandal wasn't just an embarrassing blunder. It was a major blow to the credibility of the media as a whole. It played right into the hands of those who love to cry fake news at every turn. And let's be honest, there are a lot of them these days. The incident sparked outrage and ridicule. Media critics had a field day, lambasting ABC News for their lack of journalistic integrity. Social media was flooded with memes and jokes because that's how we process trauma in the 21st century. But beyond the jokes and the memes, there was a sense of betrayal. People rely on news organizations to provide accurate and truthful information, especially when it comes to something as serious as war. When that trust is broken, it's hard to earn it back. Section 7. Can we ever believe our lying eyes and TVs again? So, what can we learn from this whole debacle? Well, for starters, it's a stark reminder that even major news organizations are capable of making egregious mistakes. Mistakes that erode public trust and make it harder for us to distinguish between what's real and what's not. In the age of information overload, it's more important than ever to be critical consumers of news. Don't just blindly accept everything you see and hear. Question everything. Do your own research, check multiple sources, and if something seems too good or too bad to be true, it probably is, because the truth is out there, somewhere. It might just be buried under a mountain of fake news, misleading headlines, and footage from Kentucky gun ranges.